A formidable woman who was decades ahead of her time, strong, outspoken, and always controversial. Mae West pushed the boundaries. This is the story of the Broadway play that censors forced to close, the scandals, the arrests, and Mae's time in jail. It catapulted her to global fame. And as we know, goodness had nothing to do with it.
Yes, but tonight you were especially good.
Well, when I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
Mae's rise to notoriety was decades in the making. Born on August 17, 1893 in Brooklyn, New York, she first stepped on stage at the age of 5, and by 14, she was performing professionally in vaudeville. She spent years honing her craft, perfecting her timing and stage presence. The critics hated her, disarmed by her unladylike comic turns, innuendos, and suggestiveness. They were scathing in their reviews. But audiences raved. They had never seen anyone like her before. Mae stood out as a woman who refused to play by the usual rules. Despite an ever-growing fan base in New York, producers refused to take her seriously. She was confined to lesser roles used only for comic relief. But Mae demanded more, and when no decent parts came her way, she took charge. She'd write her own dramatic play and cast herself as the star of the show. Thus, in 1925, she conceived the play Sex, and from the outset it was destined to cause waves. Inspired by the red light district and nightlife observed in New York City, the play would not only scandalise Broadway, but also make headlines across the world. It would change the course of Mae's life. And the play was unlike anything the world had ever seen before. She plays Margie Lamont, a street-smart woman from the red light district first seen in Montreal. Hoping to go straight, she accepts a wealthy man's proposal, but his mother's hypocrisy and the men who take advantage of Margie derail her ambitions. Mae made the societal outcast Margie the sympathetic centre of the play, her blunt honesty clashing with the other supposed morality of others and the weight of society's judgment. By 1920 standards, it was outrageous. Beyond the controversial title, making Margie the play's moral centre was almost unthinkable, especially when the supposedly respectable characters proved to be the real villains. The play's frank portrayal of the underworld and its establishments, shady characters and transactional relationships went far beyond what Broadway usually tolerated in the 1920s. And the cross-class romance between a wealthy heir and a woman with a controversial past was highly provocative. And to top it off, Mae performed a now infamous belly dance on stage, a sensual routine that left theatregoers hot under the collar and made censors clutch their pearls. But more on that later. Mae was sailing in dangerous territory. By the mid-1920s, Broadway was in the midst of a clean-up campaign, plays being closed down because they were deemed immoral. They wanted anything controversial to be purged. Nobody wanted to touch Mae's play. She approached investors, but nobody wanted to risk funding it, concerned they'd lose their money when the production was inevitably to be shut down. Mae wasn't going to take it lying down. With no one willing to back her, she decided to take a big risk. She'd take control of everything herself. She'd finance it, she'd produce it, and she'd direct it. But first it would need to survive the judgment of the censors. Before its premiere, the play had to face New York Citizens Play jury. They were a panel set up by the District Attorney's Office to review potentially immoral productions. Their opinion wasn't binding, but they were usually powerful enough to force an immediate shutdown of plays that offended their sensitivities. The jury attended a closed performance, and what happened next probably shocked even Mae herself. They gave it the go-ahead to open. it would not stay open for long.
You were wonderful tonight.
I'm always wonderful at night.
The play opened on April 26, 1926. It was an instant sensation, polarising the audiences who loved it and the critics who condemned it. Night after night, the theatre was packed with curious crowds eager to see this daring new play. The critics were brutal. The New York Times sneered it was a crude and inept play, cheaply produced and poorly acted. Billboard dismissed it as the cheapest, most vulgar, low show to have dared open in New York this year. But perhaps the strongest reactions were reserved for Mae's navel. In one of the scenes, Mae performed a slow, shimmying belly dance for a male client, her movements deliberately provocative. The display drew gasps from the audience and much browbeating from the incensed critics. The negative press only fueled public curiosity. Each scathing review drew more patrons, ensuring there was never an empty seat in the house. It was a box office smash, the biggest hit of the season, but it would soon be closed down. Mae's navel, soon to be Exhibit A, in court.
Well, thanks for the kind interest.
You know, I always did like a man in a uniform. And that one fits you grand.
It all came to a head on February 9th, 1927, about 9 months into the play's run. After that night's performance, the police raided the theatre. Mae and the cast were bundled into vans and taken to the Hell's Kitchen Precinct Station for booking, before being transferred to the courthouse. The night court judge took to the bench. They were charged with unlawfully preparing, advertising, giving, presenting, and participating in an obscene, immoral, and impure drama. Mae pleaded not guilty and demanded a trial by jury. She paid her bail of $1,000 and also posted bail for her 22 cast members, reported to total $14,000, roughly $250,000 in today's money. For now, she was a free woman. As she left the court, she beamed a smile at the waiting reporters and quipped, "Give my regards to Broadway." Mae wasn't going down easily. The following day, her lawyers secured a temporary injunction preventing the play from being closed down until the court had made its decision. News of the raid and arrests made it more popular than ever. Crowds queued around the block for tickets, desperate to see the scandalous play that had been causing such a stir. It was the must-see show of the season. But eventually, the heat became too much. Although the injunction prevented police from raiding the theatre, it did not extend to the district attorney's office. They were still able to enter the theatre. And they did, threatening to arrest the cast again and again until they had all been purged. To protect them, Mae reluctantly made a decision. She was going to close the play.
Young lady, are you trying to show contempt for this court?
No, I'm doing my best to hide it.
On March 19th, 1927, the final curtain fell, just 1 month after the police raid and arrests. The play had been performed over 375 times, enthralling over 325,000 attendees. It was good while it lasted. The streets outside the courthouse were jammed with spectators when the trial opened at the end of March 1927. The prosecution called their witness, Sergeant Patrick Keneally of the Midtown Vice Squad, to the stand. In his hands, he held a wad of notes he had taken after attending 3 performances of the play. Very thorough research. Scribbled in the notepads were the lines of dialogue the prosecution considered the most salacious. Sergeant Keneally broke into a sweat as he described how Miss West moved her navel up and down, from east to west, and how her inoffensive lines had been delivered in an indecent manner. 3 days later, it was the defence's turn. A screenwriter who had watched the play testified that Mae's dance was a common jazz shimmy and not the outrageous spectacle the prosecution claimed. The defence also claimed that, rather than being a sordid play, it actually carried lessons in morality. Margie wants to escape her way of life and better herself. On April 4th, the closing arguments were heard. The prosecution told the jury that the red light district may have disappeared from the city, but we've still got red lights on the stage. The defence conceded that the play wasn't high art, but insisted it could not be judged solely on the lines selected by the prosecution. The jury retired to consider the evidence, and the following day they returned to deliver their verdict. Guilty. Some of the actors wept, but Mae was still in fighting mode. As she left the courthouse, she remained defiant and vowed to take the fight all the way to the Supreme Court. 2 weeks later, it was time for Mae and the other defendants to be sentenced. Fans, spectators and reporters filled the courtroom, excited to see the fate that awaited them. Mae walked into the room, immaculately dressed, looking calm in the face of the judgment. The judge took to the bench. Before passing sentence, he denounced the play as obscene, immoral and indecent. And the stiff penalty he was about to impose would, he hoped, deter similar productions so New York could be rehabilitated and made into the moral centre of the universe. Most of the cast and crew were given suspended sentences. However, Mae and 2 of the play's co-producers were each handed a $500 fine and sentenced to 10 days in the workhouse. Mae was on her way to Welfare Island's workhouse, but she remained unfazed. "I expect it'll be the making of me," she drawled.
Oh, take a look at this, Gus, and learn something.
I am delighted. I have heard so much about you.
Yeah, but you can't prove it.
Mae wasn't going to be an ordinary prisoner. From the beginning, she was given the VIP treatment in the workhouse, the 5-star experience. She balked at the standard prison uniform, cotton stockings and underwear. Mae West did not wear cotton. She worked her charms on the warden, who allowed her to purchase silk stockings instead. The special treatment continued. She wasn't housed with the other inmates in the cell block, but given a private room in the administrative building. Mae, as we know, didn't mind things a little hard, but she wasn't one to mix with the hardened offenders. And the hard labour expected in the workhouse? Not for Mae. She was assigned only light duties, including dusting the prison library and keeping her room tidy. In fact, Mae spent much of the time entertaining the staff and lunching with the warden and his wife in their home on the island. Mae was released for good behaviour after serving 8 days of the 10-day sentence. Donating $1,000 to the prison library, she took the opportunity to stage a photo shoot with the warden, who called her a fine woman, a great character. He also promised the books they bought for the library would receive liberal censorship. Mae was free again, and she was going to make the most of the opportunity. Mae was now a household name across America, and the prison hadn't reformed her controversial ways. Over the next couple of years, she penned a few more Broadway plays, one of which was also raided by the police. However, that time, the charges were dropped. But it was in 1932 that she finally landed on the world stage. Her notoriety made Hollywood sit up and take notice. Paramount Pictures signed her to a supporting role in Night After Night. In her brief scenes, she stole the picture. Paramount wasted no time elevating her to headline star, adapting a play she'd written a few years earlier, Diamond Lil, into the movie She Done Him Wrong. It was a box office smash, earning $2 million and helping to save Paramount from bankruptcy in Depression-era America. The scandal had worked wonders for Mae's career. The headlines had been good for business, and as she herself said, "I believe in censorship. I made a fortune out of it."